What's going on, you guys? So my last video got taken down, and I knew it would. I told you it would because I went crazy in it, and I don't mind that. If you saw it, good for you. You got to see it, but some there was a number of people who seemed interested in it, and so for that reason, let me just do an actual professional one that isn't planned to be taken down. So the last one I was okay with it being taken down. I told you during the video that I expected it to be taken down. Um, But this, let's go ahead and just go into the topic a little bit because I think some of you really need to hear this. So, for as long as I've been in Graal, there's always been this legendary lost era that I was supposedly not a part of, and I've come to realize it just doesn't exist. Um, you know, and so I think for a lot of people, like Zelda Online has been like a point for people to pretend they came from that era, which I don't. I don't care. Like, I'm more interested in truth and facts and content and people getting paid and royalties going where they go and game development. So I don't care. You know what I mean? But like, there's a lot of people where the illusion of Zelda Online has become so big that it's an elephant in the room. And so many people have falsely identified themselves as claiming they came from Zelda Online. So you can't even trust their opinion anymore because they're lying to you, to everybody. They've been saying it for a long time. Oh, I'm from Zelda Online. And it's like this big thing that they've made up in their head because they think it gives them some type of authority, some type of ownership over something that doesn't belong to them. So, anyways, this is it. Like, this is what, the year 2026, and I am just coming to the conclusion finally where I'm not just annoyed by these people. I'm not just offended by them. I don't believe it exists. I don't believe Zelda Online even existed the way that they claim it did. So yeah, this is going to be. I'm going to go through my article. I released this article on mongers.net, so I implore you to go read it. Now, the first chunk of it is the preamble, where I just kind of talk about some of my thoughts on it and conclusions, and then we'll get into the meat of it and discuss it. So go check out that article because I'm telling you, Zelda Online doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. They made it up. They made it up. And I know that sounds crazy, but you guys, it doesn't sound crazy when you realize I've been saying for years that they're lying about the history of my games. They're lying about the history of the games that they bought with my games from the money that came from them. They're lying about my history. They're lying about me. They're telling people that I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia, which I'm not. As far as I know, I'm not. I've never been prescribed fucking pills for schizophrenia. So they're people just making shit up. They're making up mental disorders that don't exist. They're lying about us. They're lying about history. There's child predators. There are people covering that up, lying about that history. They're lying about the history of the people who took over after they stole from us. So people from the 2010s are lying about the history of Graal. Then there's people who are lying about the history from the 2000s. There's people who are lying about the history from the 2020s. Like, every time we turn around, every history is being made up. Everything's being buried, and everything that's getting documented. You see that they're banning my name from stuff. You can't even say my name. They're erasing things. They're locking down the Wikipedias. They're spreading false histories in Wikipedias, and everything is just not what it seems. So how can we trust anything they say? I want you to think about that. How can you trust anything that they say? And it took me so long to wake up because I'm a good person and I like to respect things. And so if there's a Zelda Online history before me, I had always respected it. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that was the history. So everything that's from there, you know what I mean? I don't like them, like, stealing my games and bullying me. That makes me angry. So, like, I might troll you or mock you, or I don't like when people lie and claim they're from Zelda Online. They're not. But I came, like, in March of 1999, and I've always thought there was this big, giant history before me, and it doesn't exist. I've looked. This is, like, 2026 now, guys. I have looked. I've interviewed people. I've done the research. It doesn't exist. They made that up too. They made it up. They made it up because it. And let me just read my article to you. Let me just read it. So, it's called "The Illusion of Zelda Online," and so I'll start with my preamble here. Preamble: Zelda Online did not really exist. The lore and supposed legacy of Zelda Online, and by the way, when I say it doesn't exist, I just want you to know that I mean it's they're pretending it was this big giant history of Graal and it was this big community and that's not real. And you'll see in a minute what I mean by that, because there's a very specific meaning that I'm saying here. Zelda Online never existed. It was not the way that they're claiming it is. So let's keep reading again. The lore and supposed legacy of Zelda Online appears to be largely fictional. Much like many of the later official narratives surrounding Graal Online, for nearly 3 decades, I've researched the community, firsthand speaking with former members, examining old files and websites, reviewing archived material, comparing surviving versions, and reconstructing the chronology of how the project actually developed. A recurring pattern within the community is the tendency to backdate personal involvement to Zelda Online. The name functions as a faux historical, quote-unquote, Medal of Honor, a way of claiming seniority over players and developers who arrived during the supposed period when Graal Online actually began accumulating substantial original content. So, this here, I'm kind of calling out some stuff, and I'm putting this in quotes because it's important. The seniority complex has helped transform what appears to have been a tiny, primitive ROM-based testing applet into a mythical predecessor civilization. Over time, Zelda Online became a convenient backdrop for rewriting the history of Graal, namely as content had been illegally collected from various artists, most of whom were minors in foreign countries. So they started fabricating this lore around Zelda Online as this big dividing point in the community, so that because they didn't have content. This is what I've come to conclude, guys. And again, I've never expected to come to this conclusion. I've never expected to I've had my videos. You guys know how I feel about the Zelda Online people. I think that they're jealous. I think that they're weird. I think that they're mentally handicapped. To me, the era when I first showed up, that was when Graal first came out of beta mode. To me, that was the peak of Graal, in terms of being able to experience it fully, because it was actually a fucking game. I don't like jumping into beta modes, because to me, when you go into beta modes, you don't get the whole experience. And in fact, you end up hating it in the end. Like, look at the people who were like playing a lot of the beta versions of Cyberpunk and things like that, right? Or they had a pre-release, or they got even like I think Cyberpunk 2077 released a little too soon, and it was so broken that a lot of people never picked it back up. But it was a good game after they finally fixed it. And so I'm the type of person where everything that happened like before I showed up, because I showed up right when there was still like nothing happening when I showed up, but I showed up right when it was about to be released. So they had dropped it back into beta mode and then re-released it, and then dropped it back and then re-released it. So I was kind of like in a soft launch where it was like beta mode and full release, because there was a lot of hacking and Graal Gold was falling apart at the seams. And so they kept dropping it back and forth into Graal Gold's released. Oh, wait, no, it's not ready. Oh, it's released. Oh, wait, no, it's not ready. Oh, you're not supposed to have that copy. So like they couldn't even figure it out. So at this time it was still a bit of a mess. And even that's kind of an issue, because what happens is a lot of people end up becoming disinterested. You don't want to keep playing it. But everything before this, if you go back to it, you'll find that it was basically nothing but child predation. There was nothing interesting happening. Nothing happened. The people they weren't even like actually into the community, because there was no community. There was no game. And it was just a bunch of people testing out an applet while Stefan was trying to create a game. So it wasn't even a thing. Like, it was not even a game community. And they're trying to pretend that it was. They're trying to pretend that it was a game community, because then when they ended up stealing our games and our content and starting to manipulate the game's history, there was a bunch of people who were predators in the community, and they needed to create a mythical dividing line claiming we were from Zelda Online back before Graal was Graal. And I've looked into it. It existed maybe for like 2 months at the most, and there was nobody on it. It was a testing sandbox. So Stefan, I believe that Stefan ran with the Zelda Online narrative because he saw what it was allowing him to do. And I'm telling you, dude, you can see it in the documented stuff back on my thumbnails. I ended up creating a fake Zelda Online thumbnail and sticking it on graalonline.com just to fuck with people because they were stealing my games at that point. And they were saying because Zelda Online was so mythical that when they stole my games, it didn't mean anything. And they kept harassing me about it. So I was like, okay, well, let me just make a fake fucking Zelda Online screenshot. And then, since you guys are making up all kinds of other shit, we can start addressing the elephant in the room here, which is that you seem to think that it's okay to steal from people from a game that like doesn't even exist. So like, I created this thumbnail because that's what they'd been doing. At some point when they started stealing games from people, they started claiming over and over and over and over again. So this has been going on for almost 30 years. They started using the mythical tale, and before this, nobody cared about it. It wasn't until they stole my fucking games. I swear to you, dude. I'm telling you, they did not care until they started stealing my games. They didn't care. So basically, nobody cared about Zelda Online until people started releasing big chunks of games, and the people who had no relevance in the community started constructing this illusion that there was this big Zelda Online community and that Graal, they were there before Graal was Graal. And if you weren't there, your content doesn't matter. So there was a big split. It's the same reason we got robbed. And there's a lot of politics in Graal, you have to understand. So once we started making all this game content, there was a bunch of people who weren't artists. They had no understanding of programming. They had no understanding of web design. Go look at their old websites. Their websites were trash. And they kept hacking mine, and every time I'd have to put up like a junky website in its place. I had these cool websites, and every time I had a cool website, they would hack it. But I never had backups because I was like 12 years old. So I would make these really cool fucking websites full of graphics and animations and stuff, and they would hack it, and they would delete it, and they would never put my link anywhere. But you can find records of them hacking on my stuff and deleting it. So I had like the coolest websites. I had these characters. I had all kinds of stuff I was working on. I mean, you guys, I can make cool fucking stuff. Anybody who's seen me off of this channel knows I can make cool fucking stuff. That's what I've done professionally for decades. The people in the community couldn't compete with it. They couldn't keep up with it. And so they were losing relevance. They had no more relevance. Their guilds had no value. They wanted people in their guild. Go look at their old guild websites. There's nobody joining them. And they had no game projects. They couldn't make graphics. They couldn't make characters. They couldn't make headsets. I was chucking out headsets left and right, man. I was coming up with all kinds of stuff. A bunch of the headsets that you guys have been using for the last 30 years are mine, including some of the biggest ones. And like a ton of the derivative headsets that people have been using are based off of my headsets. Like, I was chucking out so many graphics left and right. I had characters. I was creating like bombies. I was revolutionizing the software. I was creating new pieces of software. I had connections to all the admins. I was creating game worlds. I was creating all kinds of stuff. At some point, me and Freak started doing animations and cartoons. We were trying to get into cartooning. I had news websites. I had the Gravity Ring. I had Graal Soft. I had Chronic Man Shrine. Now that was an undercover one, but I had that. I had Antago Press. I had the Gaunt area. I had Sprite Express. I had a number of things, a bunch of different things. And there were so many people in the community who had no developer skills. So what they started doing was hacking everybody's websites and creating a fictitious dividing line of a fictitious history, claiming that Zelda Online was this big, giant, like mythical civilization that created Graal. Because what they did was they said, whatever we took, whatever happened, never happened. You guys, we didn't steal anything because Zelda Online made Graal. Do you see what's happening? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Look, it's the boogeyman. Zelda Online's the boogeyman in the room. It's like, or I don't even like the word boogeyman because I think it's so stupid, but like, it's this mythical shadow that they've created. So nobody made Graal. We didn't steal anything from anybody. Zelda Online, the shadow of Zelda Online made Graal. And I was there. Do you see what I'm saying? And so they started creating this illusion. And King Klops was a big one of those people because his Baddies fort that he had created, and Baddies was the only thing that King Klops ever had. I liked his fort. I still love his fort, and I think his fort is better than the castle. I still think so, but it was removed. Pachuca didn't like it. It was there, and it was just like I think it was like 3-4 levels, and it was cool. But it was King Klops's only thing he ever made. It's the only thing he ever did, apart from creating Baddies, the guild, which isn't even creative, but he had the Baddies guild. And Pachuca removed it and replaced it with the castle. King Klops felt like he had no power. He felt so emasculated. He felt so undermined. He felt like he had nothing. He felt like any legacy he was making was being erased. He felt like he had no legend. He felt like he had no power to control the server or put anything into it. And King Klops always wanted power. That was the only thing he wanted. He wanted a legacy. And so I'll give him a little bit of grace here. And I do think he's a predator. I know he's a predator. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, why was King Klops into sparring competitions? Having sparring all the way up into the age of 40. Why? Because he feels like he has no legacy. And so King Klops, along with other people, including Galen, who was stealing credit for everything and shoving it on his resume, started constructing this fictional narrative that Zelda Online was this big mythical predecessor to Graal, and that they were it. They made Graal. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you get it? So like, because they were robbing us, the actual developers, because Graal was really just a developer community. Go look at they removed that video, but I have stuff in here. I need to put more images in here. But one of the things, let me see if I have it open. So if you go to the old Cyberjor website, where's the news? That's not it. There's like an older news page that I was showing in my previous video. Let me see if I can find it. Anyways, I'll put the images I'll put it in the post for you. I'll put it in go to mongers.net. I'll put it in the post. Because this archive.org is being slow right now. So what happened was, yeah, like around August is when Stefan first created a news section. And at this point, Zelda Online had only been around for like 3 months. And it had no established community. It had no established game. There was nothing there. There was no NPCs. You couldn't drop items. You couldn't give people items. For most of it, it was a testing sandbox ROM environment that he had like modified from Bomberman. You couldn't even go into houses. There was no bombs. You couldn't bomb anybody. It was a testing applet. And during this time, at some point, there is like a testing level editor, but like it's not built in. It's not built in. And yeah, you could shoot people with bows. But like they didn't really have like you couldn't get like multiple bows. You couldn't change your bow. There's a lot going on there. So it was just like the most generic test applet. You couldn't change your headset. Everybody had the same head, and everybody looked the same. It was a testing applet. He had modified it from Bomberman. And so at some point, he recodes it into, instead of having like this test Java applet that's like decentralized and on some websites, and people are having their own like different like offshoot servers where they're testing with things, and there's nobody there. There's only like maybe 3-5 people on any active moments. They're just a group of friends, I think, and they were just kind of meeting up on there to slash each other because they were playing ROMs all the time. They were playing all kinds of other ROMs. So what happened was Stefan saw that there was a Zelda interest, and so he was like, well, I guess what I'll do is he decided to, so like there's Bomberman. First there's like Tetris. I'm sure he modified Tetris and then made Bomberman. So it goes Tetris, Bomberman. He modifies and reuses some of his code. He has Bomberman. And Bomberman's the same top-down view as Zelda. So then he modifies Bomberman to become with the Zelda graphics. And then there's like some people who are kind of using that testing environment, but it's not a game community. It has no centralized news. There's no customization. There's not even NPCs. There's no items that you can give each other. And Stefan's like, well, I'll just modify this code and to create the next game, which is called Graal. So when they're saying that Graal used to be called Zelda Online, it never existed, dude. It was a testing ROM applet that was a modification of his Bomberman code. So he just modified engine to engine to engine to engine, and eventually he decides to create like this downloadable application called Graal, and he just rips all the fucking assets from that Zelda code that had existed for like 3 months and sticks them in there and starts a news section and calls it Graal Online and starts asking people if they can make a game. This is the birth of Graal Online. When they're saying that Zelda Online is the first version of Graal, it's not the first version of Graal. They had no news section. You couldn't change your headsets. It was still called Zelda. It was using all the Zelda graphics. When you loaded it up, it said Zelda. All they're doing is recycling their code. And some of the people who liked Zelda stuck around for the next project called Graal. At some point from this testing Java sandbox that existed for like 3 months at the most. 3 months! Everybody here would believe that Zelda Online existed for like 9 months, a year, 2 years. You would expect it, like the way that they talk about it, they make it seem like it was this big game. And at some point they just switched it over to Graal. That's not what fucking happened at all. There is no Zelda Online. You're being fucking lied to, dude. And I'm calling fucking bluff on this bullshit. I've been around longer than anybody, and you guys know that. And I've gone through all the fucking records. I built fucking mongers that built Graal Reborn. I have the fucking hidden shit from them. I put the fucking archivers out to it. I created the first archive fucking movement of open source. I have gone through all the records. I've proven to you guys I'm not crazy. Listen to me when I tell you I am just coming. I give up. There's no Zelda fucking Online. I've made my own game engines, I've made my own level editors, I've made my own Ganny fucking animation editor. I invented the NPC server. I designed that technology and Stefan coded it. I created the first pay server. I fucking created the currency. I created most of Graal Classic. So the first 2 games are basically like mostly my content. The third game is built off of my stuff. Listen to me when I'm telling you. Zelda Online doesn't exist. They made it up. They had a code base. Stefan was just reusing code bases and practicing his code from college. So he had a Java applet here and a Java applet there, and he's ripping these assets and ripping these assets and ripping these assets. He's talking to people in the ROM community. Hey guys, check out my fucking ROM fucking shit, because they're trying to sell illegal ROMs. They're trying to sell Tetris. They're trying to sell Bomberman. They're trying to sell Graal. Sorry, not Graal. Zelda. They're trying to sell Zelda. And then trying to sell Graal, which is still using ripped off Zelda assets. But listen here. When this Java applet is not Graal, it's a Zelda testing sandbox that was a ripoff of the Bomberman fucking code. Well, it wasn't really, but it was a ripoff of Zelda assets, but it was a modification of his fucking Bomberman fucking applet code. So he's just reusing his code and claiming that he has this big long legacy of, he's fabricating a history so that it looks like the company's established. So once they started stealing shit from people because they tried to create a game title called Graal, it looks like they didn't rob anybody. There's a long established big deep history here. And the players joined in on it. Go through all the players and go through all my videos. And I just exposed Azrael, my last one. I know they took the video down. I just exposed him. I'll post, I can post even more shit there, too. And he's lying about everything. Azrael is lying about everything. Everything. He's lying about At one point, Azrael's even telling me that Mandy made his headset. I said, that's funny because your headset is exactly the same pixels as Pachukite, and you just changed the eyes to, like, white. They were orange, you just colored them white. And he's like, you're a bitter, bitter man. He's like freaking out. They're all liars. Everybody's a liar. Gallon's lying about history. Pachuca's lying about, Pachuca's not really, Pachuca's lying and pretending like he doesn't remember history. And I know that for a fact. And he's making up like different, like he's bending time and twisting time and lying about this, lying about that. Azrael's lying. They're all lying. King Klops is lying. Nobody's telling the truth. Stefan's lying. Unixmad's lying. Unixmad's faking a resume. They're all lying. We have caught them all in 1,000 lies. I've showed it on my channel. Stefan is pretending he had nothing to do with Destiny. You guys have heard this in the previous video that got deleted. And we expose, there he is. He's welcoming Destiny, you guys. When I released Destiny, Destiny was the first player world, quote unquote, which was basically just them giving me free hosting. And then they stole it and shoved it on Graal Classic and bullied me into putting it there. And so I designed the NPC server for Destiny because it was the first player world. I was like, Stefan, I was like, there's a bunch of stuff that I need my game to do. Now that I have free hosting, this is how this stuff happened, guys. This is how I created Graal 2001. Because go watch my video where I'm proving that Destiny was the first player world. You don't think that a bunch of the ideas that revolutionized Graal in basically 6 months after Destiny fucking released, you don't think, and I was on the project, you don't think that that's because I was the first player world? Of course it is. I was the first player world. So I had all of this content, all the games, and now they're giving me free hosting. So I'm like talking to Stefan. I'm like, I need my game to do this. I need it to do this. I'm like, can you change the engine to do that? Can you add this new feature? I was like, I got a bunch of tiles, and we had to shove them in the tile set. So like a bunch of the tiles in the tile set you've seen for the last 30 years are my tiles. And I redid the game icon, all this stuff. I'm just like, I redid the currency. I created the Graal lot for my game. All this stuff has a traceable fucking, path that makes sense. So that's how the NPC server got designed, because I was the first player world, Destiny. They steal that, they shove it on Graal Classic, and Stefan's like, let me give you free hosting, again, because we're sorry that we had to take that from you. And then he coded my NPC server for me that I asked for and designed. I released Graal 2001, and they steal that fucking thing too and start selling it. So they lie about that. They lie about that history. They lie and claim Destiny had nothing to do with anything. I've already proven that Destiny was the first player world. Go watch my video. It's like what, 4 or 5 videos before this one. Go look at my fucking channel. I have proven that Destiny was the first player world. And people are lying about it. They're all lying about it. Even the people from Zone are lying about it. Everyone's just lying about history. So, which is so stupid to me. Like, just tell the truth. And guys, go download my game engine. Go download my level editor. Go download my Ganny editor. You guys know I can fucking code. You guys know I got it. You guys know that I got graphics. I got web design skills. I've got the receipts. I've got the logic. Everybody in this fucking community is a fucking liar. And none of their stories are coinciding with each other. None of their stories are adding up. So believe me when I tell you, they're lying about Zelda Online too. They made it up. I'm not going to read this whole article. You should read the whole article. Let me just briefly sum this up, and then you guys can run off and do your thing. Because the last one got taken down. I knew it was going to get taken down. I posted it just so some people would get it, and but I was doxing people and stuff in there, so I knew it was going to get taken down. Like, I expected it. I posted it knowing it would get taken down. But this one should not be controversial. This one should stay up. So let me just tell you guys who haven't seen the other video. I went through the archives. I'm looking through all the archives. I'm looking through all the fucking quote-unquote official stories. And that Wikipedia, the Graal Wikipedia, has written me out, and everything I've done in there completely out. They've written out Destiny being the first player world. They lied about that. They've written about they've left out all the names of the creators. Graal Era is on there, and they won't. But nowhere does it tell you who made Graal Era, and it was Jessie. She went by the name of Angel. And that's not in the Wikipedia article. Why? Why would you write an entire article claiming that you have all of the cited, all of the sourced background information on a major title that's existed with multiple publishes, games published under the same fucking trademark and brand, with no credits to who made any of the published games under the Graal trademark? Isn't that fucking bizarre? So one thing that they did do was they mentioned that Graal had an earliest release as far back as January 1998, which never existed. It just never existed. Back at that point, there was Stefan fucking around with his like Bomberman stuff. Even Cyberjord didn't exist at this point, from what I can tell. And so they've got, at some point, a modification of the Bomberman applet where he reskins it with Zelda code, and he sends a message to Zelda fans that says, "Hey, come play this ROM." And like maybe like 5 people start fucking with it. It's like very minimal people. It's decentralized. It's a testing sandbox. It's not even a game. You can't, like I said, you can't change your headset. There's no bombs. You can't bomb anybody. You can't go in houses. The server's junk. There's no NPCs. You can't give people items. It's nothing. It's nothing. You can't skin your shield. You can't skin anything. Everything is generic. It's still using the Zelda graphics. And this is just another one of his ROMs to go next to his Bomberman one. Around May, it appears that the Zelda Online was released, around May of 1998. And at most, maybe like 5 people were fucking with the Sandbox ROM. And so around, at this time, and remember, Graal's not an established company. This is before social media. So there is no community. There's no game community. There's no websites. We can't find any websites back from this period. There's no fan sites back from this period. The earliest we found any fucking fan site was like August of 1998. It appears to be. And even then, because it wasn't actually a game community, and it was just a testing sandbox. They're not even talking about Graal. They're talking about other things on there because it's just their personal website that just happens to have Graal or Zelda Online stuff on there, or Graal stuff. And so that happens then. And on August 31st, Stefan announces and says that he is. It was August 16th. He's asking people if they can start. He needs somebody who can make a game for him, because now he has this level editor, and he wants them to use some of his modified assets to see if they can actually make a game. So the Bomberman and the Zelda testing applet and stuff that's existed at this point, there's no community. There's no centralized community. There's no message board. There's no news site. They don't even have a homepage. There's nothing. It's not real. And at most, there's like some people from a message board who have like picked up the applet and just like went on there and slashed their sword sometime in a Zelda 3, a very, very basic, very, very, very basic, poorly coded, poorly made Zelda 3 kind of vaguely familiar ROM clone that's using their sprites and their tiles, and it's all just called Zelda. So at this point, and there's no centralized server, it's not up, and it's just a website, a web page you can go to sometimes, and there's nobody there. Around September, August, it's August 31st, so after August 16th, he's asking people if they can make a game. Because they have no game. It's just a Zelda test ROM that like copied some of the levels. And so around this time, there's some people who started picking up the level editor, but there's no NPCs, there's no custom headsets, nothing. There's not even there's no NPC commands either. And it started messing with the preliminary testing sandbox level editor, and they had made some of their own maps. And they were like just a few levels at the most, and there was like nothing there. There was nothing interactive. Again, no NPCs, nothing cool really going on. They released this downloadable Delphi C++, Delphi DirectX version in mid-September of 1998. And at this time, Stefan ends up getting, a hold of some other people's levels who've submitted them. They start submitting him levels at this time because he asked them to on August 16th. But this doesn't get released in the download until mid-September. Maybe some of them were on the server in early September, late August, but it's nothing. There's nothing there, and there's nobody playing it. But there's still some people from this ROM forum that knew each other, and most of them are child predators, literally, and liars. And so around mid-August, now you can download Graal. At this point, now it's a downloadable executable file, and people are starting to develop some of the first preliminary levels that are now being compiled into a collective world, and it's being called Graal Online, and Stefan is sometimes calling it Zelda Online. And so it's not Zelda Online. It's no longer this testing sandbox. It's not Bomberman. It's not Zelda Online. He remade the code. It's not even the same fucking code. It's now a downloadable application. And he's only loosely calling it Zelda Online because he he just ripped some of that code and some of the assets that he had from the Zelda ROM and used it. But he's still using also some of the assets in ROM from Bomberman. The Bomberman ROM Java applet that he had. So, any fucking ways, pay attention. There is no Zelda Online big mythical community. It never existed. It was just a testing sandbox. A few people fucked with. So now there's a downloadable version of this thing that's Graal. It's now called Graal, and it's an actual downloadable. Now it's a game. It's an actual downloadable game. And it's still using stolen Zelda assets, but he starts tweaking the graphics. And so at this time, now Graal basically begins in mid-September of 1998. It was first announced as Graal Online on August 31st. And he's talking about how there's going to be a downloadable, actual installable game that is now being called Graal in mid-September. And it gets released around mid-September, I believe. And now they have bombs, and now you can drop items and trade items, and it's now being called Graal. And he's just advertising to the people who were using his Zelda fucking test box. And now people who are kind of using that, some of them submitted some of these janky little tile maps that they created. And he's compiling them into it. And so you can kind of fuck with those a little bit. There's no big mythical Zelda Online history like they're claiming. It's not even really the beginning of Graal like they're claiming. It's just the code predecessor. Just like Bomberman was the code predecessor to Zelda Online. And the people who were playing Bomberman had an online mode, from what I remember. So the people who were playing Bomberman, and don't quote me on that, maybe it didn't, but either way, Bomberman had multiplayer mode and computer, you could play against a computer and stuff, and different features that were being recycled and used. And it was the same top-down view, and it was tile-based maps. So it's the same thing. So okay, from that same explanation, nobody's playing it. It's just some loose janky piece of trash, freaking applet, sandbox ROM thing on your college projects. Okay, then let's just say that Graal Online was born from Bomberman at that point. They don't want to do that because now it's starting to sound ridiculous, you see? The racket, the illusion, the lie of Zelda Online is starting to sound ridiculous. And it's starting to get sketchy because this is literally what happened. So he recycles the code from Zelda Online. Very few people are fucking with it. It's just a bunch of creeps from a ROM message board. And they don't really have personalities. There's not really levels. There's no graphics and levels, no custom headsets, no characters. It's not functional. It's not, you can't even install it, and it has no centralized server. Not really, because other people were able to have their own offshoot server, and at most there was 10 people. At most. So I'm thinking 3 to 5 people on an average at most. And it's just the people you already knew. You already knew them from the message board. And so at most, maybe there was 10 people, dude. And I'm talking about peak hours that happened maybe 2 times a month when they all decided from the ROM forum to get there, to just log on there and start slashing their sword. And then they got bored and got off. There is no Zelda fucking Online. And when you go through their websites, and all the history, Zelda Online doesn't appear on Stefan's fucking college site in January. And typically that would, if you just released a big giant game that everyone's now using, is being linked around everywhere, and it's this big mythical history, why would that not get logged on archive.org? I find that hard to believe. And the same thing with Graal. Like once it gets like this code is the code is completely redid. It's not even Zelda Online anymore. He just recycled some of the assets and messaged the same people from this ROM forum, said, "Hey, I have this thing called Graal now. Would any of you guys like to like help me make it into a game?" Okay, so he's recycling again. So how is that any different than what he did with Bomberman, where he just took the code and the assets and recycled it? So he's like recycling it. Nobody plays the fucking thing. There's no community. There's no websites. And all the websites we find that go back as far as we can go, it's just people talking about like random topics like me today at homework. And look at this. I like to fuck around with Digimon. And I also love Pokemon. And and I like Stone Cold Steve Austin and wrestling and WWF. It's not even fucking like Zelda Online based websites. It's just some people who happen to come across Stefan's ROM applets. And some of them were into Bomberman. Okay, so where's this big Zelda Online centralized mythical community and history? It doesn't exist. So not until we get to like mid-September does anything that starts to resemble community begin to form. And now we have a log news section. And now it's a downloadable application. And now we have people submitting levels. Okay, you see what I'm saying? And then like probably I think around like October, November, you can start to do right, now you have items and now you have bombs. And by items I just mean you can drop like a rupee. You can drop like arrows. Ammunition for arrows. Not like real items. Those don't even come until 1.2. So around like mid-September, now you can drop items and lay bombs. Okay. But still no custom headsets. They're all dressed as the same character. And you guys, when I fucking joined the community in March, it was, go look at the news, the official news. It was so unstable, they didn't even have admins. Pachuca and Gallon weren't even admins when I first started. So they had no admins, and the server was going down all the time, and Graal Gold was like released, and then they took it back and said it's not officially released. And then they're like, okay, no, it is released. No, it's not. So they're like releasing Graal Gold and then not releasing it because it's not even stable. And that's the first time they actually had a game with a story in it. And the server's down all the time. And Unix Matt's complaining about how the server is not even working. So, okay. So you guys, where is this big mythical fucking Zelda Online history? It doesn't exist. Because even when I joined there was like nothing there. And Pachuca's Southern Map stuff didn't even drop until 1.2. I mean, go look at like early 1.1, like when the game first released its full story mode. That just dropped when I joined. So I joined when there was now a full story. There wasn't even a story before this. And there was no stable players, and it looked like there was child predation and people preying on Mandy. And and anything she was making was like on her own private server, because we have screenshots of some of her stuff that never made it onto that we've never seen since. So, okay, let's follow along here. And then Pachuca's finally adding levels, and so is Alexander Yoshi. So the first time we really see levels is like Alexander Yoshi and Pachuca. And those get removed. As soon as Pachuca releases them, they were removed. Like he had stuff there, but then like the stuff that was there, it was like tiny amount of stuff, but it was like substantial. It was like contributed for like the majority of like stuff that was even there. And he drops like his full Southern Map some months after I was playing. And then that gets removed within the same month because there's a dispute because they tried to steal it. Because they had no game. So, any fucking ways, guys. You go back to the logs, there is no big mythical Zelda Online history. And Stefan is willing to sign off on that because it benefits. Do you understand it? It benefits Stefan to claim that he's had a big, long established game world, you know, going way back to January of 1998 and even in 1997. And I think that when he's like lying and saying, I had a prototype in 1997, he's just claiming, he's literally just like talking about his Bomberman code that he reused. I'm telling you. Why would he there's no way that he didn't that he rewrote everything from scratch. It makes no sense. If you already made a game that's very similar to Zelda in the way that it functions, you would just reuse your code. So when he's saying that Graal goes back to 1997, this fucker is just backdating and making shit up. All he's saying is that I'm reusing code from stuff I've done before. Reusing code is not a game community and a fucking legacy and a mythical civilization. Reusing a test sandbox from mid 1998 is not January 1998, and it's not an established game, you fucking liar. And releasing a downloadable version that is reusing some of the Zelda Online ROM test applets that had nobody playing it in September with, this downloadable, installable, executable file is not Graal being built off of Zelda fucking Online, by the way. This is now some big fake new title you just made up, and you just reused some stuff. Okay, so you ripped off some of the stuff. Where's this big giant Zelda Online mythical fucking legendary history that I swear to God it doesn't exist. And if you go through the fucking websites, like I've said, guys, they're talking about weirdness on there. They're like, where is it? Like, let's find it. Even like on like the Insane Zelda Posse thing, they didn't even have like a guest book until like March of 1999, guys. Do you see that? March of 1999. That's as old as it gets. This is the fucking test page. March 16th of 1999. This is like basically when I started. So they think that there's a big mythical history, and there isn't. I can't find it anywhere. And when you look for it, it's just people being like, oh God, things used to be so great. There's no way that they were. You guys, I know how business works. I know how sandboxes work. I know how Java works. I know how applets work. I know how ROMs work. I went to school for video game design. There was no mythical history. Maybe some people you knew got around and like chit-chatted about stupid shit, and you played all kinds of stuff. You're playing all kinds of different games, and every once in a while you fucked with one of Stefan's applets. That's not a game history in a mythical civilization. They're trying to rewrite history. They're pretending there's a big, giant, mysterious thing. And if you go on their websites, they're like, oh, I miss the good old days. Where are they? Oh, anyways, let's go through here. Hold on. So you go to Elite Zelda Posse's website. And by the way, these people were controlling the website at this time. So I had links up, but they wouldn't put it on the website for a lot of these different dates. They just would not put my websites up. Instead, they'd hack them and go read Pachuca's goodbye letter. You'll find out that that's true. Why were they erasing other players' and creators' legacies? Because I was a creator and they weren't. And they knew that they had no relevance. So they constructed a fictitious history, and they hacked the people who were making them irrelevant because they had no relevance. So what they did is they would hack my websites. Pachuca admitted to it. Read his goodbye letter. I shared it to you. It's on the forums. He admitted he kept hacking all my stuff and erasing it. And so did Spider. Go look at Spider's old fucking archives and websites. He bragged about hacking my stuff all the time. Every time I would do something, they would hack it and remove it. If they were hacking my stuff and removing it and erasing it, you don't think that they're doing the same thing when they're pretending there's this big, giant, fictitious Zelda Online history where they were all these massive, big people? They're faking history because they have no relevance. And a lot of them are lying about when they started. And by the way, Zelda Online existed for the most 3 months as a test applet where nobody was on it and it was not centralized. And there was no game community, and there was not even a news section or an official website for it. That didn't come until late August. And the downloadable executable was in September. And that's when now you could drop rupees and arrows, and there's like nobody playing this thing. You guys, Graal was not an established business. They didn't even start making money until February 2001 when they took my games and started selling those. So there's no way they had a bunch of fucking players. Nobody was there. There was no community, and you can't find any trace of it. So, anyways, you go through Elite Zelda Posse. They have all these like Zelda. Like, you ask yourself, why are like all of the guilds called Zelda? Like based off of Zelda stuff. Elite Zelda Posse, Insane Zelda Posse, Guardians of Hyrule. You know some of these things. Listen to this. A number of these guilds, these Zelda guilds, came after Graal, the first version executable, was released. So it gives this illusion that there was this big giant Zelda. No, it wasn't. There was just people and there's a reason for that. I can tell you the reason for it because I was around back then. Graal, Stefan kept marketing Graal as a version of Zelda because he had no player base. The company wasn't established and they had no audience. So the easiest way he could do that is he kept telling people that Graal was a Zelda game. And so there was a testing sandbox at one point for like 3 months called Zelda Online. Nobody played it and it was a piece of shit and there was nothing happening on it. And so when they say that that's Graal's origins, it's not. And then they keep backdating it to January to make it look even bigger and more mythical and more established. Oh God, we go way back and we did all kinds of stuff. No, it's not real. And so anyways, when the Graal executable gets fucking released, Stefan's like, I've shown it on the Cyberstore stuff. Go look at the news that I'm posting here. And some of you have seen it in the previous video. Stefan's asking people to make a game for him because he has none. He has no game. So anyways, now suddenly people are like submitting levels and it's a downloadable executable file. And pretty soon now people are going to have headsets. And so now there's actually a community happening where people can actually have an identity, have a character, have an avatar, have a personality, and then they can like give each other rupees and arrows, and it starts to become a community. And then websites start popping up. A lot of these websites don't even pop up until like October. This is around the time that I'm telling you that everything's really started. And so where is that? Somewhere is the history. On some of these, this might not be the one, but one of these where they literally explicitly state that the history is, and I think, okay, so here we go, the EZP story, right? So it says here, in an era of digital information, Graal has encountered a new frontier, a new challenge like no other. We are protectors of the digital exploitation on Graal. We are the masters beyond your own very soul. Be aware, we are constantly watching those whom try to defy the divine rulership of this informational highway, on which we jealously protect, yet our principal purpose had yet not been clarified. I.O., what we call monitors, speak to us. So be wary, my friend. We are watching you. It's fucking made up shit. It's just a bunch of made up shit. And you go, like I said, you go to like the MOD page and all these other pages, and it's like it doesn't really start taking off until mid 1999. And I had already been, at that point I had already been playing. Now, when I first joined, I remember like the MOD town was there, but like nobody was ever there, and none of the guild members existed because they had no guild. It was just some dude they're making fake guilds. They were making fake guilds and nobody was in them. Nobody was in them. And then they're writing on their websites, we had so many wars, and we had this mythical legends, and it was so deep. And like, read this. You guys, it's made up shit. It's LARPing, it's role-playing. And Graal was originally marketed as an RPG. So you go through the history, and I'm telling you, they started lying about the history. Because I showed up and I started fucking making all kinds of awesome stuff, and I started kicking everyone's ass. And and there was nothing really happening before me and Pachuca. Because Pachuca had a personality, and so did I. And me and Pachuca were the biggest creators, and Mandy, but Mandy got chased away. Alexander Yoshi too, but Alexander Yoshi was never around. Like, he was just like in and out. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was going to university or something. And so was Bruges. So there was like nobody making anything. And I was one of them. And so at some point they all decided it would be funny to convince a child that there's this big legendary mythical thing that had happened that never did. And then they started stealing my stuff, hacking my websites, hacking my computer, downloading my stuff, and lying about me for the last 30 years. And then and every time I expose them, they're all lying about shit, and then they start deleting things and hiding and freaking out and sending me cease and desist because they're freaked out. They made it up. Zelda Online there is no big mythical, and Stefan started backdating stuff because he started stealing games. Of course it's beneficial to him. Same reason he lied on fucking Avalonia and Corleone, saying I had nothing to do with Destiny. I don't even know him. He's crazy and schizophrenic. That's funny. Where's the DSM? The DSM verified diagnosis from a certified therapist, Stefan, that says I'm a schizophrenic. I'm sure you in Germany have exclusive access to my therapist's diagnoses of me. Okay. Why do we have screenshots of you fucking running around in Destiny? I logged Destiny. Go watch my video. It's the first player world. Stefan was the one who set it up. The hosting, not the world. He set up the hosting for me. And then I started building Destiny even more because I had already been working on it since summer of 99. And even before that, because back in like spring of 1999, I had created my first Antago levels. And all that stuff kind of, evolved. So, and I created the gravity ring back in spring of 1999. And that evolved into the gravity tower. So, anyways, at some point they all just started making, because they were losing relevance. And they never had relevance, and they had no level-making skills, and no art. They had no creative skills. So they started fabricating histories. And, read this shit. This is just made-up shit. This is not a real history. So many fucking ways. You go into, where is this? The members. Let's see if I have it pulled up. Or is it not going to load? Oh, here it is, finally. So you go into the fucking members. And there's nobody in it. It's the same people. Loki is in everything. Loki was also in, what was it? Was it MOD? I think it was MOD or whatever. The one with the maps on the background that I showed in my previous video. Loki's in everything. Masters of Deception. I believe he was Masters of Deception. And so is Zul. Zul was also, he's the leader of IZP. So you got Masters of Deception, Elite Zelda Posse, and Insane Zelda Posse, and it's all the same people. And they're pretending there's this big, giant, historical guild war history filled with mysteries and myths and wars, and you weren't there. You guys, Zelda Online was a test environment applet that had been changed from Bomberman, and the first time it actually became a community was literally in mid-September when it was called Graal. And everything traces back to then. There was nobody before this. You go through these websites, and you find out when they were created. Many of them, they were created in the autumn and the winter of 1998, when it had just become Graal. So this is just months before I showed up. And there's no way that you're telling me that Stefan, some fucking nerd from Germany, has all these big connections, and that he had created Zelda Online. It was this big, massive community. Nobody was ever playing Bomberman. Nobody was ever playing Tetris. None of this stuff is logged. If it was so big, it would have been on archive.org. There's no way it wouldn't have been. That's just the way it works. If you had this big, giant fucking game site, and Zelda Online was this big, mythical, established fucking game site, then it would be on archive.org, wouldn't it? Do you guys know how hard it is to start a community? Especially without social media. This was back, and this was late 90s, where there was nobody online. You're telling me Stefan was just this big, they had no money, no following, no mailing list, no marketing department, no advertisements, no ads on websites, no budget for ads, no ads on television, no following. He had no friends. We know Stefan had no friends. He had no connections. They didn't even have a website, and they had no news. And it was a junky Java test applet that some people who were playing, because they thought it was kind of, a fun mock-up of Zelda, fucked with sometimes. You guys, that's not a game community. That's not a mythical history. there's no like I said before, there's no NPCs. You could even give people you could even give people rupees and arrows. You could even bomb people. And the head was everybody wore the link head. At most, there was like 3 people testing this applet on a like the average peak hour. I swear to you, there's no way that there was more than that. I'm sure maybe it blossomed to like maybe 10 people in total who even fucking like used this thing. And they weren't really like members of this community. There was no community. There were just people who fucked around on some of his applets. That's not a history. That's not a game history. You don't get a stake in a game company because you fucked with a preliminary sandbox applet. And that's what they're doing. They're constructing this fictitious fucking history so that they can make you think that they're owed something. No, King Klops felt like shit because his fucking Baddie's Castle got his Baddie's Fort got replaced by Baddie's Castle, and Pachuca said, go fuck yourself, Klops. So he felt like he never had a place, and so he lies and claims Zelda Online's this big thing. It's not real. I'm telling you, it's not real. And King Klops never had a personality. Where is it? I've watched King Klops where he has no personality. He was sparring little kids on Graal and talking to them up until the age of 40. For what reason? This guy's there's nothing happening behind his eyes. It's just like emptiness in his head. Big fucking pit of vanity. And so there's nothing there. And you go through all the websites and it's the same people. It's like 3 people with some random names. I guarantee you most of these people never even talked to each other or hung out. They probably, because this is the way it was back in the day when there was like no players, because I joined when there was barely any fucking people playing the fucking thing. And in order to start some type of group, you would often just message random people and say, hey, do you want to be in the group? And you would put their name on there because it made you look like you were a clan. None of these people even fucking knew each other or talked to each other. I can guarantee it. And how was Zol managing multiple fucking guilds? And Loki? And they were all at war with who? With yourself? This is the big mythical Zelda Online history they're telling you. And by the way, this was made in autumn of 1998. So at this point, it wasn't even Zelda Online. You fucking guys, dude. So, same with these other fucking things. Here, let's find it. Where is it? Somewhere on here. One of these pages. I forget where it was. Let me see if I can. They literally said it was like created in October of 98, which isn't even Zelda Online. I'm telling you, there was no community there because you can't start shit like that. Like it takes time to build a community. It takes time to build a history. It takes time to build a game. So when they're claiming that Zelda Online was this big freaking mythical history and that they were all a part of it and they had all these wars, and it's not real. I'm telling you, they faked it. And then they hacked our stuff and deleted our computers and erased the trace of it. They erased the history of it, but you can find it everywhere. They were hacking us, admitting to it. And they stole all our content because there was nothing here. And it all makes sense to me now because I remember going through here and just remembering like Graal being so bored. That's one of the reasons why I started making stuff in Graal, because it was so boring. They would have like all these, there would be like a guild house, like MOD town, and nobody was there. There was no NPCs there. And the people who made MOD like were like barely ever on, but like they were still like lurking, like loitering around for years and trying to like make MOD a thing. It wasn't even a fucking thing. Like just like listen to this. You would walk around and you would see something like MOD Town. And most of what that was like they would like reskin something that was there, or they threw together random tiles or like tile maps, and there was no NPCs and they had no members. And there was no real Guild Wars playing and nobody playing. So like somebody had randomly made some levels with the tile editor. And then it looks like MOD was this big thing. And I remember thinking, like, what is MOD? How mysterious, you know? And then, like, the dragons, like the red dragons. And then you have, like, all this stuff. And, like, Zol's Pub and the insane Zelda posse. And I remember, you guys, I was there when Graal first, like, became a full version. When Graal Gold released. And this was just months after Graal became a thing. Zelda Online's not real. Like, it's just some testing sandbox. And so when Graal became a thing, there was like various people in and out of there, and because there was nobody there, they would like come in and they would leave. They would test the game out and they would leave. So you saw that Graal would start to exponentially grow the more that we added to the content, and the more we added to the software. Then it became like a thing where people were like, "Oh, I want to be here," because it feels like I don't know why this isn't loading. But anyways, then it became like a thing where like people would start to hang around more. And I'm telling you that MOD was never a thing. And you go through their websites and there was nobody there. And then like Loki's like, I'd like to like make this a guild, like in like late 99. Okay. So you threw together some junky levels that had no value and nothing going on in them and no purpose. And it looked like Stefan wanted a product. He wanted to sell something. So he would like grab those junky fucking things that some fucking nobody threw together and he would stick them on the server. So it looked like something was happening because nothing was happening. Because Zelda Online wasn't a thing. And that didn't happen until like Graal. Like the MOD stuff wasn't like officially released in like the downloadable version until it was called Graal in September of 1998. And so, okay, now you've got like MOD like houses going on there, but there's nothing going on in there because there's no NPC. The NPC scripting language doesn't exist. You can't have headsets. There's nothing going on. It's just like random empty tiles that people threw together. So MOD Town appears like a thing, and it's not a thing. And there's like nobody in it. And there never was. And the same thing with like Guardians of Hyrule. So you had all these random narcissists who would like throw up a tripod website on GeoCities or Tripod or Angelfire, and they would claim they had a big guild. And it wasn't a guild. And then when I would do it, they would all try to hack me and erase it. You guys, the most action these guilds ever had, the most wars they ever had was with me. It was with me. Ooh, this is weird. Why is there a whole directory of stuff? Ooh, that sounds fun. I'm going to have to download some of this. Okay. But anyways, so the most wars they ever had was with me. That was the first and only time that real wars actually fucking started taking place. And they're documented. You can see them. Before this, there's like no guilds. It's just random people testing out an applet. And they're like throwing up their website and they're like, he's my webmaster. Okay, but he's also the leader of IZP. So you're not even a guild. You guys, you're not even a guild. Who were you at war with? Mandy? Or Corson? Corson, the piece of shit who hacked my website and thinks aliens are real and like is in this big UFO club. Anyways, I'm going to end this because somebody's calling me. I got to go. But I'm telling you, hold on, it's fake. It's fake. It's not real, dude. There's nothing there. They made it up. And the reason there's all these ghost towns is because it's just it's faked. Because there's nothing there. The guilds were never a thing. So they're all ghost towns.